Hello friends, my name is Nick, and this week's plant of the week is Philodendron Jose Buono. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that exactly correct, but this is a newer, more collector variety of philodendron on the market that's really just showed up in full force in the last couple of years. And the price has been kind of all over the place. Sometimes you can find it for a good price, sometimes it's kind of expensive. I think it depends, of course, on the purveyor and also how large the plant you are purchasing is. I purchased this one, maybe just a couple leaves on it a couple years ago. I think it was only like $25, so I did find it for a good deal. So you can find it for a good price if you look hard enough. And this has been a pretty easy growing philodendron for me. It's not the easiest of all the philodendrons that I grow in my home. The leaves have had a mind of their own at times. When I first brought this home, I've had this one for probably about 2 years ago. I think I said that already, but it was growing up and up. As it's a climbing philodendron, it likes to climb up, and I did not give it a support to climb up. So as those leaves got taller and taller, it probably only reached about like 16 inches tall in maximum. The leaves got really small, and I was not happy with it, so I cut this back. If I turn the plant a little bit, you can see right here, this is where I cut it back to. And then randomly, it started making a new plant right here on the side of the plant like I expected it to, but this one kind of slowed down immensely as this random plant just emerged from the soil. And now this is the nice, beautiful plant with the leaves that are definitely front and center for you today. So it has been a learning process. That's basically what I'm trying to say. It hasn't always been smooth sailing with this houseplant, and it still is not smooth sailing with this houseplant, I will admit. So not an easy houseplant, but it's not difficult either. I just think this is an intermediate houseplant. Let's agree on that. So the lighting for this houseplant is where I think I personally struggle the most. I originally grew this near a south-facing window in my old home, and now I have this growing near an east-facing window. And I still think that's a little too much light for this plant. Even on this new leaf, as gorgeous as it is, it does have a little bit of like chloroticness. Is that a word going on it right now? So I think I really should actually pull it a little deeper into my home and subject it to a little bit less sunlight, because I think it's looking a little tired in some of its old leaves, a lot quicker than some of my other houseplants, which is just telling me this is probably getting a beating from the sun, so I really should consider pulling it back. In fact, I probably will do so today, because it's very clear to me that I need to do so. So I think a north-facing window will be great if you're going to keep it in the window. An east-facing window, in most cases, I would say, is going to be okay. Mine is just unobstructed, and it's a lot of harsh sunlight coming in the morning time. So I think that, in my case, is just a little too much. But I think in most cases, an east-facing window would be great. But if you are working with a west or south-facing window, I would definitely consider pulling your plant back, as this will burn, or at least the leaves are going to get kind of yellow and tired, which they already have this kind of like lemon-lime coloration to them already. So that's extra sunlight just kind of pushes it beyond and just makes it look just not as good as the ones that you'll probably see on social media. The watering, though, has been pretty easy for this houseplant. It's just like any other philodendron, where I'm letting this dry out, I'd say like 50 to 75%, not completely, but almost completely. Then I go ahead and give it a really good drink. And it has been doing totally fine. I've never had an issue with the watering. I think the lighting, as I said, is the issue that I'm just personally struggling with getting to know with this houseplant. For the soil, you can use just a standard aeroid mixture, which you can use just like a peat moss or coconut coir-based potting soil, and amend it with some perlite or pumice, some kind of puffy volcanic rock. And some orchid bark is fantastic. I prefer a finer orchid bark, but even just the larger chunky orchid bark that you're gonna find at a big box store is perfectly okay. And even some charcoal if you're feeling nasty, just to keep everything a little cleaner inside, but that is definitely not necessary. But the perlite and the orchid bark I would consider to be essential for growing philodendrons to their fullest potential. These will do fine in standard household humidity. You probably should supplement the humidity. This will be fine as low as like 40% humidity and still grow swimmingly, but if you get below that, I would consider supplementing some humidity, which really probably is only an issue going into the winter months when the heat kicks on in our home and dries out the air. But like 40% to 60% humidity is going to be the ballpark of what you're aiming for. And temperature, standard household temperature is also going to be fine. I think these are good with like 55 to like 80 degrees. So it's a pretty wide range. It's probably what you're going to be working with in your home. So I would worry not. Pests, however, that is my most recent struggle with this houseplant. I've noticed that there are some thrips on this plant, particularly this new leaf right here. So I'm going to use some houseplant systemics, which is my go-to for treating thrips. And maybe I'll just throw it in the shower, clean off the leaves, give it a good watering as well, because I think it's time to water it. And I could even go ahead and spray the leaves with either a mixture of water and Captain Jack's, which is a concentrate that I purchased, which is a spinoside, which is what's found in lice shampoo, and it works very well on thrips as well as spider mites, which I don't struggle with spider mites with my philodendron Jose Buono, but just throwing it out there if you're struggling with spider mites on something else. Or you could just use an alcohol spray. I'll use like 1 part rubbing alcohol to 7 parts water with a few drops of natural dish soap, and I will put that in a spray bottle, shake it up and spray it all over my plant, let it sit for a little bit, and then I will wash it off with the shower or the watering can or whatever works best for the plant that I am working with. So I will have to do a little pest problem solving with this plant here, so just be wary that I do have the thrips problem. This is definitely one of the philodendrons that I find thrips on most often. Propagating, if you've propagated any other philodendron or like a pothos before, you know how to propagate this houseplant. You'll just do stem cuttings just like I did. I took a stem cutting right here and I popped it in some water, except my leaves were kind of wimpy, so I admittedly got rid of it in the end because it just looked so bad. And this plant just looks so good in comparison now, but super easy to propagate. I would just recommend submerging or having at least 2 nodes to submerge into the water or the potting medium, whatever you are using to propagate your philodendron, just because I find often with some of these more out there philodendrons and monsteras and aroids in general that sometimes they can have inactive nodes where it does not produce any roots for me. So just to kind of nip that problem in the bud, I would recommend submerging 2 nodes in case one of them is inactive, so you don't waste a cutting, because that would really be a shame. And last but not least, I'm pretty sure, oh, well, no, not last but not least, but toxicity. These are moderately toxic, so I would keep these away from your pets. These are not the most inviting leaves. They're pretty thick and leathery and long. Like my roommate's cat never thought about, my old roommate's cat, the one who would chew on the plants, never thought about chewing on this, but if you do have nippy pets, I would be mindful. I don't think it will warrant a vet visit, but it will still upset their tummy and not be good for them to ingest. So I would just be wary there. And last but not least, the fertilizer. You can just use standard houseplant fertilizer. As always, cut the recommended amount in half because you always want to use less when it comes to fertilizing. And you can do that once a month in the growing season, so the spring and summer months. And you will have a beautiful philodendron Jose Buono. But I never fertilize my plants until they've been in the same soil for a full growing season, just because there is plenty of nutrients in fresh potting soil. But that's going to do it for today. Philodendron Jose Buono. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you don't already, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at phillyfoliage. You can subscribe to my Patreon for even more houseplant content. Subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.